Hello everyone and welcome to Book My Therapy. Today we have on board Alissa Firth-Eagland, an extraordinary soul navigating the realms of movement and yoga. Alissa is the founder of Garden Variety Movement. Her services help people recover from brain injury. Hailing from a blend of British, Scottish, Polish, and Czechoslovakian roots, Alissa, the yoga teacher, brings a unique perspective to the mat. Thank you so much for joining us, Alisa. It's a pleasure to have you on board.
Thank you for having me, Neha. It means a lot to be invited to talk with you today.
So, Alisa, I have a few questions for you. Um, if movement and mindfulness could manifest as tangible shapes or colors, how would you describe the palette or forms that represent the essence of your teaching?
This is such a fun question because um, I trained first as an artist and then as a yoga teacher, and you're asking about sort of visual. There's something very visual about your question. These idea of tangible shapes or colors. So yeah, I think of the type of movement practice that I do as almost like watercolor. Like there's a blending and a flowing from one type of action or movement or breath work into the next. Almost the way that when you're working with watercolor, you don't have necessarily a clear idea of always where the painting is going to go, and you have to trust the medium to carry the message forward as well. Um, I'm partial to warm and cool colors like pinks and purples and blues and greens, just because I feel really happy when I see them. Um, but I guess the essence of my teaching is trying to help folks who are participating in my yoga services to find their own version of safety and to discover that for themselves and rediscover it every moment, because sometimes something will come up and you need to address it. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
It definitely is. So the second question is about how do you navigate the intersection between the structured discipline of movement practice and the free flowing, adaptable nature of creating safe spaces for individual expression within your sessions?
Mm-hmm. I think improvisation is a really important part. And I'll give you an example. So, some of the clients that I work with regularly are the staff at the Grand River Hospital in Kitchener. And for them, it's not necessarily yoga for brain injury, but it's yoga for brain health and mental health, and giving people a sense of resilience and calm in the middle of a really chaotic environment. And because the clients or the staff, they don't always know when their breaks are going to happen. And sometimes they just have to pop in when they can. So when I was working with Katie Ronholm, the coordinator and program manager for occupational health and well-being at Grand River Hospital, we decided to design the yoga services as a 2-hour drop-in. And that's pretty unusual. You don't usually have a 2-hour class. It's either 45 minutes, an hour, maybe an hour and 15 minutes. Yoga class is pretty typical. And instead, this way, the nurses, the x ray technicians, the scheduling team, they could come anywhere between 11 and 1 p.m. that worked for them. They could stay for 5 minutes or half an hour and pop in, and I would improvise a script for them. The main thing I would ask when they arrived is, how are you feeling in your body today? And then riff on what they were saying. So if they talked about having sore back or tight hips, I would come up with a sequence that responded to them in the moment. And um, I feel like that's related back to being initially trained as an artist and being able to be creative with whatever circumstances you're faced with and respond and react in a meaningful way, so that the people on the receiving end get something special and feel special from the experience. Yeah.
Interesting. This question is about, can you share a moment when a participant in your sessions redefined your understanding of safety in
Hmm.
movement, challenging your preconceptions and leading to a transformation in your teaching approach?
Yep. Yep. And I feel like this is a great question because um it's about how I learn as a teacher from my students, right? It's and that's so brilliant because it's one of the best things about the job. So I was teaching a slow flow on Saturday, I think it was, a couple weeks ago. And it was the first Saturday back after um the New Year celebration. And often there's this expectation around what we should do. As the new year rolls around, we start to set resolutions or um, ask ourselves, who do I want to be now? Where, I don't know, you could argue that that's not really necessary and that the dark of winter is maybe not the best time to set a bunch of new intentions for yourself. So that was the context of the class that I was teaching. And it was full. It was maybe not full, but quite a good group of people. And I've learned one thing from my students is that often they're in a rush and they need to be able to come in and just settle. So, out of habit, I set up a mat or two in the back with all the props so that whoever comes in late can just hop in and they don't have to feel weird or awkward by pulling out their own props or making noise. They can just jump into the sequence. And I usually catch their eye and say, welcome. And one of these people came in, joined the class, and about halfway through, they sat back onto their heels and moved into child's pose, which is, folks are probably familiar with it. It's a face down pose where you're looking down at the earth and you're resting your body on your shins and your arms are usually forward. So you're sort of as close to the ground as you can be. And this person decided to take this pose and they stayed in it for a good 7 minutes. And it made me really happy because um, they were taking care of themselves and they decided, actually, what you're doing right now is not as good as what this would do for me. So I didn't want to single that person out in the moment, but I did want to kind of congratulate them on their choices after class. So, very subtly, at the end of the class, I went over and I said, I just loved seeing you taking care of yourself and doing what you needed to do because that's what this is all about. And yeah, I think that that person was defining safety for themselves in that moment, that pushing themselves to do whatever we were doing wasn't the right choice.
Wow, interesting. Thank you for sharing. It's definitely insightful.
Yeah, it's
Um,
fun.
the last question is from the resources that you have on your website.
Hmm.
Um, about self-care. So the self-care cycle you have designed is an empowering tool for tracking small shifts in brain health. Could you elaborate on an instance where a seemingly small shift in a practitioner's approach to self-care created a significant ripple effect in their overall well-being or mindset?
Mm. This is probably the trickiest question to answer, and the resource tool that you're referring to is a one sheet that has a bunch of different activities that you could try if you're a brain injury survivor or you've come out of a concussion and you're living with chronic symptoms. Things that you could try at different times of day um, to try and decrease your symptoms, which is a really hard thing to do. We all know, like, there's about a million ways you can increase your symptoms, but how do
Mhm.
you actually decrease them? And so it's a cycle. There's probably six different points on the circle, morning, afternoon, evening, and what are some good ideas? So I'll just give you a couple examples. In the morning, one of the tips is to eat quality fats and protein. So things like meat or fish or avocado or egg or legumes. And then in the afternoon, the advice is to do something with your hands to get out of your head, like maybe do a drawing or clean up a space or fix something, but to kind of get into a bit more of a flow state. And then the evening one of the examples is to try and go to bed at the same time each night, because sleep is so important for folks living with concussion symptoms and brain injury symptoms. So, to get back to your question, these are all really, really small things that you can do, but they add up over time. And I'm trying to think of a specific example. Um, I know that when I've worked with clients, checking in with them about their physical activity levels. This is for folks who've gotten past the hump of the worst of their symptoms and they're trying to move beyond that plateau that they're at. So plateau is pretty common in brain injury. You don't get better unless you push yourself. And the folks that I've talked to who have integrated cardio, strength training, and light activity into their day tend to report feeling a little more stable mood wise and symptom wise. They seem to be able to manage things better. But it's a tough line to balance because you can very easily push too far. So, would you mind if I share my one of my top tips for your listeners if they're dealing with a brain injury?
For sure. Please
Because it
do.
kind of relates a little bit. So, uh, I think a bellwether is a good word for it. Bellwether, I guess, they used to put bells on sheep when they were
Mhm.
trying to figure out where the flock was going. So you could kind of hear it coming. It's like, so a bellwether is like a predictor. And
Mhm.
so my tip is to find out what your bellwether symptom is. What is the symptom that predicts other symptoms? So, for example, in my life, I've learned that it's tinnitus, that ringing in your ears that can be pervasive and distracting. And I know that if I keep pushing myself at whatever task I'm working on and don't stop to address the symptoms, they will increase. That's a pretty good chance. And if I keep going, I'm going to have a mood swing potentially, or a headache, or feel ill, generally get fatigued. So I would really encourage, if you have any listeners out there who are dealing with post-concussion syndrome or symptoms from brain injury, to find out what's the predictive symptom, what's the one that comes first that's like a bit of a warning, and then use that as a way to go, okay, now I could stop and not push myself too hard, and I'll save myself the pain of a flare up, because a
Mm.
flare up can knock you out for a day or even anywhere from a day to 2 weeks, depending on where you're at and how
Mm.
bad it is. Yeah, thanks for letting me put that out there. I appreciate it, Neha.
Oh, no, this is a very important tip. So thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Um, I like how you mentioned about the bellwether because, most of the time we are into reactive treatment, but this is a proactive treatment. So, yeah, thank you for taking the time and sharing. It's definitely helpful.
Of course, yes. And it goes hand in hand with the the ideas of tracking the things that make you feel better.
Mm.
So what actually decreases your symptoms? I know for me, rest really helps. Cuddling with a loved one, a pet, or my partner. Something that makes you feel calm, down regulates your nervous system.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well said.
Really
Thank you.
wonderful questions. I loved them. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for taking the time to answer them. Is there anything else that I should have asked that I have probably missed asking?
Oh, no, you've done a beautiful job. I think the only thing I would add is that if folks are interested in that free resource, um, or any other free resources that I might have, that they can email me or join my email list. So the email list you can join on the website, but if you want to get in touch with me directly, my email is Alissa, ALISSA, @gardenvariety.ca.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll also add it in the description so that it is out there and it is easy for people to reach you by sending an email to you. The end of the podcast, and I really wanted to thank you genuinely for making the time and answering all those questions.
Of course. Thank you for being such a thoughtful host.
Thank you. If you like this episode, please hit the like and subscribe button and let me know in the comment section if you have any feedback or review for us. This will help us reach maximum number of people. Thank you. Bye.